Hello friends and welcome to my channel if you're new, or welcome back if you are back. If you are new, hi, my name's Rabbit and my pronouns are they, them, and either way, thank you so much for clicking on my video today. Today's video is a lot of rambling and talking about stuff that's just been rattling around my head for the last couple of weeks. This whole video got started when I was thinking about the baby bat phase and my baby bat phase personally, and how awkward and experimental it was, but also how beautiful and necessary it was, and how lucky I feel now to have had that. And I was thinking about the fact that in my life I've been into so many different alternative subcultures. I've been super into punk, super into ska, super into folk punk. I had a really big hippie phase. I was emo for a couple of years. And I got called a poser a lot, and also called cringy a lot for experimenting and being into different stuff and liking things that other people didn't get. But that's a-okay, and I'm so happy for that because all of it just brought me closer to being who I am today and being so happy with myself. My core message in this video is that cringe isn't a curse. It is a beautiful rite of passage that means you are trying, growing, and creating, and people should be less afraid to skip it or hide it. This video is a love letter to the awkward alternative phase. It's a defense of doing too much, trying too hard, and figuring it out publicly, and a rejection of the idea that you have to get it right before you're ready to be seen. Essentially, I was thinking about how a lot of baby bats nowadays seem so much more polished than they did at my age, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Like, I get it, I'm not in middle school, so I'm not seeing like real life human children on the reg, and I live in a metropolitan city, and like a lot of the people I see are like maybe they're older teenagers, so I get user error is a thing. However, like even online, the teenagers and like really young people that you see that are alternative tend to be the highly polished and incredibly put together ones. And I get it. Like, the internet is an absolutely brutal place, and it can be really scary to be yourself and be called cringy out there in public. But I absolutely miss it, and I feel like it can make maybe people who are new to the subculture feel like they don't belong because the only people that they see out there are these like perfect Instagram model baddies, like levels of beautiful. And I want to be really clear and give a side note on misogyny about this, because I don't want to be coming off as hating dark and sexy hot goth girls. I love hot and sexy dark goth girls. I find inspiration from them. I watch them on YouTube. I listen to their music. Hot ladies in hot fashion, heaven, absolutely. I'm not here to gatekeep anyone's look, especially based on how sexy or polished or like mainstream appealing you might look. Because I think a lot of hot ladies in alternative spaces get a lot of misogynistic backlash about like, oh, you must be just doing it for attention, or like, oh, how could you possibly like Bauhaus, or like, oh my god, name 5 like all this kind of misogynistic bullshit. Like, no one calls me a big titty goth girlfriend, but I could imagine that gets annoying as hell. So what I'm critiquing isn't the fact that sexy hot goth girls exist. It's the fact that like that the algorithm pushes them as the only possible form of goth that is out there. That if you're weird or scrappy or disabled or trans or a person of color, you kind of disappear. And that absolutely flattens out what should be a wild and handmade and diverse subculture. I want more people to feel like they can belong in alternative spaces, not less. And I want to be super clear that I'm not blaming the 12-year-olds for emulating what is part of a larger cultural issue. I feel worried these days that kids don't feel a lot of freedom to just like smudge on some really messy eyeliner and borrow their uncle's leather jacket and listen to the Sisters of Mercy and like feel super cool and badass. Like, I worry that the only way that they can feel part of the subculture is to emulate extremely cookie cutter versions of what it means to be goth or whatever. And it's not their fault. They're growing up under a system that tells them that beauty equals worth, that perfection is a necessity, that cringe is embarrassing. But I just wanted to get out here and rant a little bit about it. In my opinion, occasionally being embarrassing with your fashion or your makeup or your music tastes or your interests is an absolutely crucial part of learning what you like, what you are interested in, and Generally, cringe just means you had enough courage to experiment, and that is such a beautiful thing. Finding yourself is about experimenting, and obviously not all experiments are gonna be a success. I find that sometimes people forget that there's a learning curve to finding your aesthetic, and it can feel like you have to copy an exact model of what has been shown to you, but that makes me really sad. I want to see the difference in the weirdness and the experimentation. Cringe is like compost that your creativity gets to grow in. You need to have these like offbeat, weird, chaotic looks that like didn't really make sense just to figure out what works and to like pick out little parts of them that do make sense. There are so many different phases throughout my life that still I hold on to things from. Like when I was in my emo phase, stripes all the time. I still love stripes and wear them constantly. Punk, I love the music still and listen to it all the time. With goth, same with the music and the fashion. I've gotten a lot of inspo from pastel stuff. I love dolls and get like inspo from them for fashion. Like there's so many different like things that I enjoy, and you absolutely don't need to feel like you have to fit into like one specific category of alternative subculture. You can make up your own and just find what makes sense and is fun, because that's what being alternative is all about. It's about being different and experimentation, and not everyone else is gonna get that, but it's important to be yourself. And to be super, super clear, when I say cringe, I'm talking about weird, wonderful, beautiful stuff that other people might not understand, that is harmless. I'm talking about putting on a rainbow hat and howling at the moon because it makes you feel alive. I'm talking about dressing like a vampire and going into your grocery store in a massive cape. I'm talking about putting 3,000 jangly little safety pins and knickknacks on your jacket and sounding like the Tin Man everywhere you walk. I'm talking about that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about actual serious issues like transphobia or cultural appropriation. Those things aren't cringe. Those are like actual problems. So yes, I am celebrating the joyful, weird, expressive beautifulness that gets called cringe. I want to say you don't have to be good, quote unquote, at fashion or at makeup to belong in this subculture. Style should be about communication, not competition, and you don't need to prove you're goth enough. I feel like social media really values the visual, and to be fair, I do too. I obviously really love maximalism. I love weird, I love loud, I love frilly and dark and glittery and filled with bats and like, I love all this stuff. My tastes are chaotic, and that brings me a lot of joy. But I'm not saying that you have to like that same stuff to be alternate enough or goth enough or whatever. I've had people tell me that I'm not goth because I have visible body hair, or I use they them pronouns, or I'm too bubbly, or whatever it is. And I've also had people in my comments say like, hey, I don't dress alternative or wear makeup or whatever, but I love the music. And to that I say, hell yeah, you are awesome. Gatekeeping is boring, and the whole are you goth enough thing is so freaking tired. Like, let's enough of that. Are you expressing yourself in a way that makes you feel real? Are you enjoying the music? Are you creating something interesting and weird? Like, that's the part of the community I care about. That's it. That's the magic. There's no right way to exist in these spaces, and if someone is telling you otherwise, it's probably because they're trying to sell you something anyway. So just burn the rule book. Be yourself, whether that's quiet or loud, weird, soft, chaotic, maximalist, minimalist, whatever. I don't care. It's just about like having that freedom to express yourself. The striving for perfection is capitalist. It is not punk. It sells, but it doesn't say anything. Social media can make it feel like people are just born with perfect eyeliner and these enormous expensive wardrobes, but it's a lie. Like, filters, edits, and fast-forwarded timelines can make it look instant. So many people are afraid to post their beginner phases, and I feel like that fear steals the joy of learning, the power of discovery, and the community building magic of showing up and saying, I'm trying something, you know what I mean? I feel like when people hide their past selves and pretend they came out these like perfect, gorgeous, alternative creatures, then you lose part of your truth. You lose like that part that was your origin story. And the community needs to see that so they know that they're allowed to have it too. I'm not here to say that you have to hand sew your entire outfit from like Victorian curtains or else you're not a real goth. I'm just saying that if you want to make your weird dreams real, you don't have to wait till you're good at it, and you can start today. On the note of social media, I want to talk about one of my favorite things, which is like the really old photos from social media. I'm on Tumblr and I follow a lot of like old archive blogs that will post like people's old club photos, and I miss seeing those kinds of photos on like current day websites. the ones that are super blown out and overexposed and everyone's sweaty and grinning and they're just like the best photos. Everyone's makeup was kind of smudgy and like the fashion didn't really fit perfectly, but it felt so freaking real and so unique and so fun. And primarily the biggest thing for me is that it felt accessible. I could see myself in it. I could feel like I could put on my slightly ugly, shitty, swirly eyeliner and a shirt that was a little bit too big and go to the club when I was old enough and dance the night away and like feel like part of it, you know what I mean? But when you see everyone looking like absolutely perfect and incredible and just like these highly curated, incredibly aesthetic, like just models of goths, which are gorgeous to be clear to look at, it can feel like, never measure up, like do I even friggin' belong here? And I get that that's like a personal issue of like self-confidence and whatever, but I really miss the beauty of the messiness, and those photos have like such a special place in my heart, and I kind of want to go back to feeling like we're able to post our gross, sweaty club photos and our fun, melty makeup looks, because, you know, who cares? I feel like gatekeeping really thrives when we forget the cringe, when we only show up in the final form and only allow ourselves to. New folks might feel like they'll never measure up and might feel too scared to join. So really and truly, I just want to say cringe is beautiful. If you've been called cringe, it's because you tried, you learned, and you grew. You made art out of awkwardness, and your cringe phase is and was something to celebrate. I feel like it's possible to mock teenagers for being cringy, and then we complain when they don't try anything new. And it's like, you can't have it both ways. Babybats are the future, and we once were them. I want to encourage you out there, whoever you are, to make messy outfits. Try wild makeup that you want to try, and get it wrong and try it again. And if you see a baby bat in the wild, compliment them, cheer them on, be the elder goth that you wish you had when you were first trying out in the subculture and feeling a little awkward at the club for the first time. If you have a picture of yourself in raccoon eyeliner and 5 belts and a skirt over jeans, frame it. That is a badge of honor. And if you don't have a photo like that, it's not too late to start. Like, I remember when I was 12 and I was worried like I'm too baby-faced and like juvenile for the fashion, and now I'm 27 and sometimes I'm like, am I too old to be dressing up like this? And it's like, no, absolutely not.
On the getting old thing, one thing that I have to remind myself every time I get like in my head about like weird ageism or like society's like misogynist expectations and stuff, the thing that I remind myself that just brings me so much joy is, if I am so lucky to get to grow up and be old, how fucking cool is it gonna be to be like an interesting alternative like goth granny or like kind of punk wizard man? Like, that's gonna be so fucking sick. Every time I see cool old people, it makes me like super joyful. So like, that's also something that I'm like, dude, you're worried at 27 about like looking old or like being too old for the fashion, but imagine the potential and the beauty that awaits you in the years ahead. Like, holy shit, there's so much fun to play with as you age as well.
If you are 75 years old and you want to start dressing like a vampire, join us. We would love to have you. The cringy phase is not reserved for preteens. You can start whenever. Alternative fashion isn't about youth, it's about resistance. Resistance to boring fashion, to gender roles, to quiet conformity. You don't grow out of subculture, you grow into it. And if you're young and someone calls you cringy, good. You are starting your legacy.
But with all that being said,
if you're not ready to show the world your cringe, I get it. Maybe you've been made to feel ashamed. Maybe it's not safe. Maybe you're still untangling years of being told that being weird is wrong, that loud is too much, that self-expression has to be perfect. But even if the world isn't ready for your weirdness yet, you can be. Start by being cringe in secret. Do some ugly makeup looks in your bedroom, and try some terrible DIYs that you don't have to show anyone. Write weird poetry that's too dramatic in your journal that no one will ever read. Let yourself exist. Let yourself begin, because that's how you build anything. Make friends with the cringe. Invite it in and let it be part of you. There's no confidence, no personal style icon, no beautiful creative DIY experiment that didn't start with 1,000 little awkward beginnings, and you deserve to have yours. You don't have to be ready to be seen. You just have to be ready to start. So please, try to DIY something new this week, even if it turns out bad. Flip through your pictures of your early days if you have them, and your messiness and your weirdness, and be kind to yourself about it. And recognize that like little you was onto something, and that it was so beautiful and so cool that you started. You belong here. I just want to remind you, wherever you are on your journey, you belong. And in defense of ugliness, I don't really care for this idea that everyone is beautiful. And I get why people say it. It's supposed to be like affirming and uplifting, but it still centers beauty as the end goal. Why is beauty the metric? I genuinely want to see ugliness. I want to see ugly goths. I want to see ugly punks. Ugly outfits, ugly art, ugly zines. Ugliness is interesting, it's powerful, it doesn't cater, it doesn't ask for permission. There's a quote that I read that says, "Beauty is limited and therefore limiting. Ugliness is infinite, like God." Like, I don't think ugliness has a moral value, and I don't think it needs to. I just think it deserves space. The world teaches us that ugliness means failure, shame, that it means there's something to fix or hide. But I'm here to remind you, it's not. In a world that tells us the beauty is the goal, that ugliness should be feared and covered and swept away, I think ugliness is brave. Ugliness is honesty. It's resistance. It is free. And I still make things to this day that are kind of cringe. Not on purpose, it just freaking happens. Like a makeup look flops, or a DIY outfit goes weird, or a video comes out kind of goofy. But I just have to post it anyway and let myself be cringe. Because if I didn't, I would never be creative or make anything in my freaking life. So the fear of cringe can so often be holding you back. And what I think is cringe sometimes, like in my own video, or like what I feel like a little bit embarrassed about showing, someone else might find a source of inspiration, or like a spark, an idea, a starting point. There's so many things that I've posted that I'm like, oh frick, this is really cringy, but I just have to do it, you know what I mean? Because sometimes you have to be cringe for the children. Because I remember my first goth. I was 6 years old maybe, in the hardware store with my dad, and I saw this person. They were mask presenting, they were decked out completely in a full neon green and black cyber goth look, from the trip pants and the chains and the everything. And it was just like the middle of the afternoon in a hardware store. And it blew my tiny freaking 6-year-old mind, just this person existing, being themselves in public. Because it was the first time that I saw that adulthood didn't have to be boring suits and stupid dinner parties and beige everything. It was the first instance that I saw like something beautiful and weird and dark and wonderful and also adult. My light died, but I'm just gonna keep going and keep saying that person may or may not have been called cringy in their life, but just by them being themselves and existing out in public, it like planted this seed in my mind that later turned into a fruition of like so much love and experimentation and creativity and expression and finding myself in alternative subcultures. So sometimes you have to be weird, you have to be cringe, you have to be yourself for the children, even if other people think that's cringe. Like I said, I still get called cringe for my clothes, for my visible body hair, for saying my pronouns in my bio. But I keep doing it because the only way to show the next generation that they belong here is to be here loudly. You have to be yourself for the little kids so they know that they too can grow up and not have to be a boring beige person if they don't want to be. So go forth and be cringe for the culture, for your past self, for the kids, and for the weird future we're building together.